It's that time of the year again! And by that time of the year, I mean it's every time of the year. We've started now. We're in perpetual hype season, baby. We got previews for All Is One. And to be honest now, without a week or two here and there, we'll probably be in preview season for the rest of the goddamn year. That last sentence had to be censored, so I wonder how it's going to sound on the end video. I'm going to talk about some of the previews that I find interesting and put that out into the world because you people love to read this shit and watch this shit. And I like making it for the most part because this is easy content. Perpetual hype, baby! Don't forget this video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, so hit that link in the description below and get 5% off your next order to help support the show when buying magic product and sealed and singles and all that good stuff. The fast lands are back. These are the lands that were originally printed in the Scars of Mirrodin block, so we're getting the Phyrexianized versions of them. I picked up Backclay Cliffs here to show you because I like the art. It shows a dank and dirty furnace layer, which is a red-black biome that I quite enjoy. I imagine it smells like asses. The Seed Core depicts the roots of the World Tree's offspring, the Realm Breaker that will take the Phyrexians to other dimensions. It's where they play out the bomb and then Elspeth teleports it away. Outside of the canon, it is a reference, a callback to Pendelhaven. I do really like seeing Phyrexianized versions of cards like Pendelhaven. In this case, we don't see Pendelhaven itself being Phyrexianized, but instead we just see a direct version of it, an imitation of it in the trees of New Phyrexia. It adds colourless mana, adds 1 mana of any colour to spend this on to cast Phyrexian creature spells, which by the way is pretty much every creature that has Infect. Even the old ones have been errated to have it now, and it has Corrupted. You tap it and target 1/1 creature. It's a +2/+1, a reverse Pendelhaven, I might add, until end of turn. And you can only activate if your opponent has 3 or more poison counters on them. There's a weird thing here where, like, Corrupted, I think, is a mechanical thing where if they have poison counters on them, the card does extra. But it also looks like flavor text from the AFR cards. Without me looking further into the set right now as I'm recording, I can't clarify this. That is a weird moment that I've never had before. I'm looking at this and I don't know if this is flavor added text or a keyworded ability. Tell me in the comment section below. I'm sure I'll figure it out as we go. We have another callback to original Mirrodin here with Staff of Domination. Don't forget, we've always had this with the Scars block and the Phyrexia and similar as cards from original Mirrodin being updated, showing us what they look like now as they are the mirror image of what they once were. There's probably some more nods in this art, but I can't tell you them. The original Staff is a powerful artifact, and this mirrors it in every, well, I say every, almost every way. Instead of tapping for mana to get the abilities, you pay life instead. So you pay 1 life to destroy target permanent you own. Pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any colour. Pay 3 life, proliferate. Pay 4 life, draw a card. And 5 mana, untap Staff of Completion. The whole destroy target permanent you own is fascinating to me. There's got to be some things in here that are better. I guess perhaps the demon, there's a black demon that might kill you if you don't get rid of it. The oil demon, I'll put it on screen now. I'm not going to talk about it at length. It's just a demon with a downside that might lose you a game. But I guess you can tick down and donate elsewhere, so there's something cool about it. Or you can blow it up with Staff of Completion. Venser Corpse Puppet is probably my favourite Magic card title from the set so far. A legendary creature, Phyrexian zombie wizard. It has lifelink, which seems to be a common thing among Phyrexians now, and it has Toxic 1 as well. And whenever you proliferate, choose 1. Noticing that this card doesn't proliferate itself. This is a payoff for having another proliferate engine or cards to proliferate on them. If you aren't familiar with what proliferate is, it's a keyworded mechanic that once it resolves on a spell or a triggered ability, it allows a player to put a counter on each opponent they control that already has a counter on it of the same type. You can pump loyalty counters on planeswalkers, +1/+1 counters on creatures, poison counters on enemy players. Oh, sorry, I've misspoke. It's not your own stuff, it's anything on the battlefield. So you can politically uptick other people's stuff. You can put poison counters on players you've already poisoned with Toxic, Infect, or Poison. It's a really fun mechanic. I've always really enjoyed it. And I think it's cool to see it come back. It's obvious it was going to come back for New Phyrexia. It was the original Phyrexian mechanic when the Phyrexians returned in Scars block. So it's not unusual. Anyway, whenever you proliferate, choose 1. If you don't control a creature named the Hollow Sentinel, create the Hollow Sentinel, a legendary 3/3 colorless Phyrexian Golem artifact creature token. And then you can also choose, God, I don't know why I'm stumbling over reading this. Target artifact creature you control gains flying and lifelink until end of turn. So you can turn that golem into a flyer, or any of your other creatures into a flyer, and more lifelink on black-blue cards. It does a lot for a 2 mana 1/3 legendary creature. It does make me laugh that legendary used to be a downside because you couldn't play multiples, but nowadays it's pretty much an all upside because they're also very, very pushed, and then obviously playable in your command zone as well. Although playing this as a commander would be a really strange one. I don't know why. I love the name, but I don't think the card really does enough for me to care about it. It's kind of a whiff in terms of what I find interesting or exciting. Then we have Glisser Sunslayer, a 3-mana 3/3 Phyrexian zombie elf. This is the third version of Glisser we've seen, second version where she's actually a Phyrexian. First strike and death touch. Whenever Glisser Sunslayer does combat terms to a player, choose one. You draw a card and lose 1 life, destroy target enchantment, or remove up to 3 counters from target permanent. So it's following that Phyrexian theme of to remove encounters. She's also a card draw engine, and she destroys enchantments, which is relevant in terms of the internal balancing of the removal in the set, which I'll come to in a moment, and also something that Glisser used to do before, destroying enchantment. A 3/3 first striking death touch with all that text on it is pretty powerful. She's strong. Malira the Living Cure is a 2-mana 3/3, so we got a Watch Wolf, if you remember what Watch Wolf was. If you get 1 or more poison counters, instead you get 1 poison counter, and you can't get additional poison counters this turn, so it really slows down the infection rate, which is part of Malira's thing. She is immune to Phyrexia. She cannot be touched by the oils for very long. It runs off her skin unlike other people. As you see in the art, she stood in a pool of water and it's separating the oil from the water. But also she says exile Malira the Living Cure, choose another target creature or artifact. When it's put into a grave of this turn, return that card to the battlefield on its owner's control. It's like a Safi Eric's Daughter style effect, which suggests to me, canonically or story-wise, Malira will sacrifice herself, exile herself, either disappear from the rebellion or dying, to save another creature. Now, I said on Twitter earlier today that this will probably be one of the Planeswalkers. This will probably be Jace, I'd imagine. But then I realised I thought it said creature, artifact, or Planeswalker, but it doesn't. So this either suggests to me that she's going to save a particular creature from the infection, so that might be a key character further down the line. Maybe Thalia gets infected and Malira saves her, for example, if we go for old fan favourites, or perhaps the Phyrexianization of a Planeswalker removes their spark when they're cured, so she will save Jace, but he will just be a legendary old man who will grow older and no longer have his powers. I think that would be a really interesting way to take the direction if it cures just one of them and the rest of them stay dead or completed. I want to talk more about that in a minute when we get to the Planeswalkers. Ossification is a 2-mana enchantment aura attached to one of the basic lands you control, incentivizing you to play basic lands, which is always a good thing. And then when Ossification enters the battlefield, exile target creature or Planeswalker opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. It is an O-ring effect with a chained to the rock style effect where it needs to be attached to one of your lands to do it, which means it can be pulled off in multiple ways. It can be blown up itself as an enchantment, that makes it vulnerable to enchantment removal, but if it's on a land and that land gets flickered, bounced, or even destroyed by a, I guess when it's a basic land, it's not getting hit by field or wasteland, but let's say someone plays Strip Mining Commando and strip mines your island you've attached this to, that'd be pretty fun. Either way, I like it. At 2 mana, I think it's a very, very powerful effect, and this has to see some play, at least in Standard, if not in other formats. Vanish into Eternity is a common that takes probably the best piece of art from the entire set, or at least on par with Elish Norn's art, the bit where Elspeth planeswalks away with the Solix to an unknown location, the bit that we all thought might be her getting killed. I generally thought she'd been unalived, if you want to watch my video from yesterday. It's 3 mana, exile target non-land permanent, which is very strong on an instant for 3 mana in white at common. However, if it is a creature, the spell costs 3 more. This is strong, like really strong. I wonder if just because I've not played a huge amount of Magic in the last week or so, I'm starting to maybe over-evaluate things as too powerful, but 3 mana to exile a Planeswalker, enchantment, or artifact seems like a versatile piece of removal. The fact that I can hit a creature for 6 mana is good, but it's probably a little bit too high for ever to see a huge amount of play. I just wish the cowards had allowed this to hit lands, but that's just not going to happen in the contemporary landscape. Minor Misstep is a 1 mana counter target spell with mana value 1 or less. It's not very exciting, but I just wanted to point out that it's a very cool reference back to Mental Misstep. There's also an irony in how Mental Misstep broke Legacy and Vintage for a while and is banned in most formats, which would suggest that it wasn't a minor misstep. There's just a really interesting meta-narrative around this callback and reference. Then we get Kemba Car Enduring, a 3 mana 2/2 legendary cat cleric. Kemba is back, and this time she's not wearing as gratuitous boob armor. She's 1 mana cheaper this time around as well, and is actually a bear. I know she's a cat, but 2/2 creatures for 2 are referred to as bears. Whenever Kemba Cat Enduring or another cat enters the battlefield under your control, attach up to 1 target equipment you control to that creature. And equipped creatures you control get +1/+1, and for 5 mana, she can create a 2/2 white creature token. Words are hard. Okay, this card is interesting to me. Mainly, I've tried to play cat and taxes a million times before where we played D&T with added cats, so seeing more powerful playable cats is great. The fact that she herself picks up a Sword of Fire and Ice, a Batterskull, a Cauldron Complete, or even a Jit in older formats is interesting to me as well, and she can make Leon and Arbiter do the same. And then after all that, she also buffs them and herself if she's carrying an equipment. So if she's carrying a Sword of Fire and Ice, she's now a 5/5 as opposed to a 2/2. I mean, you don't need that much help with the Sword of Fire and Ice, but it is added power. And then she can just generate creatures too. That also equips stuff. I think this is pretty decent, and I might try playing Green, White, Cat and Taxes again with Kemper, Cart, and Enduring as maybe a 2-op. Venerated Rot Priest gives Infect some sideboard tech or perhaps main deck tech in newer formats. So Pioneer, for example, when none of the old Infect stuff is, this is coming to Pioneer via Toxic mechanic. A 1/2 for 1 with Toxic 1. So when it hits them, it deals a poison counter. You can't pump it. Toxic is a fixed version of Infect. It's gone back to the old poisonous way, where instead of like changing their power to be the amount of poison you take, it instead just gives them 1 counter. But whenever a creature you control becomes a target of a spell, target opponent gets a poison. So it's a way of putting more poison counters on enemy players as they kill your creatures with removed. Then we got a Phyrexian Arena reprint with the art of Vraska betraying Jace after that really sweet moment in the story. And this continues that long-standing tradition of seeing our favourite Planeswalkers, whether that be Urza, or not quite Planeswalkers in Gerard, or Koth, on Phyrexian Arena art. I think this is wonderful. It doesn't quite show the arena itself. I prefer this art to be a bit more zoomed out, but either way, cool include. Then we come to the not quite cute but kind of strange Skrelvs, or Skrelv of the character and their hive, which appears to be some sort of insectoid creature. It looks like a ball of yarn with bones protruding from it, but of course this is more like the entrails and the genetic, the not genetic, what am I looking for? Biological material found in Elishnorn. Either way, these insects come from a 2-mana white enchantment. So at the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't be blocked. Unblockable, infecting creatures. This is the white Bitter Blossom. And here we see that Corrupted is not flavor added. It is an extra piece of text. It's a new keyword. As long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. Again, seeing more lifelink on Phyrexians. Either way, this seems like a really fun build around card. That's going to upset some people because people seem to hate Infect, but I'm all for it. Also, is this the best white Bitter Blossom style effect we've ever had? Have we ever had a white Bitter Blossom before? Not to my knowledge, not that I can think. And then we get Skrelv themselves as a Defector Might. So I think they're fighting against the Phyrexians, but I can't be sure. They're a Phyrexian Might artifact creature with Toxic 1, so they leave a poison behind when they hit you. It's a 1-mana 1/1. It can't block. Oh, I'm a fucking idiot. Go back to Hive a second. I read it as can't be blocked, which is insane. To make a 1/1 every turn with Toxic that can't be blocked would kill you in like 3 or 4 turns. That's, I can't believe I misread that so badly. Okay, this is nowhere near as good. I thought this was like a solidly playable, like, standard dominating Bitter Blossom. It is not. It is a Bitter Blossom-like card, but may not be anywhere near as strong as Bitter Blossom because those 1/1s do not have evasion, so they don't create the clock to fight against the life loss that Bitter Blossom does. Although that said, it is half a clock with Toxic. Huh. Interesting design. Defector Might, going back to it, can't block, now that I've read it properly. And it has Phyrexian Mana tap. And Phyrexian Mana is going to be paid with white mana or 2 life. So Phyrexian Mana is back, but it looks like it's being used sparingly, perhaps only on the activated abilities and not in the spells themselves, outside of the completed mechanic, which we'll come to in a moment. It has tap, choose a colour. Another target creature you control gains Toxic 1 and Hexproof from that colour into end of turn. It can't be blocked by creatures of that colour this turn. This is essentially a legendary Mother of Runes in Phyrexia. This is a Phyrexianized Mother of Runes. A definite callback and reference to that, even if there's nothing about it in the art or the flavour. Although that said, if Skrelv has a hive, is it a mother? Is she a mother? Are they a mother? That's pretty cool. You pay 2 life to do it. It gives them Toxic 1 to play into the Infect game plan, and then it gives them Hexproof and Hexproof from that colour. It's not quite protection in some ways. So, for example, you can't block with this creature. That's the biggest change there. It may be Hexproof from that colour, and it can't be blocked by creatures of that colour, but it can't block creatures of that colour infinitely, which is something that Giver of Runes and Mother of Runes allows creatures to do. The other like small fringe thing, there's going to be many, but the other fringe thing is Wraths. So if someone hits you with a Pyroclasm style effect, 2 damage to all creatures you can't give pro red. You're going to give hexproof from red. So it's not quite a Mother of Runes effect. It's more of an offensive Mother of Runes effect than a defensive Mother of Runes effect. And I actually really quite like it. Then we come to another white rare that sort of plays into this archetype. It's a 2-mana artifact. Whenever a creature you control dies, scry 1 and put an aura counter on Norn's Wellspring. And 1-mana tap, remove 2 aura counters from Norn's Wellspring and draw a card. So I don't think this is like a powerhouse as such, but in this archetype of generating small tokens for low mana investment and sling them at your opponent in an aggressive, toxic game plan, and by toxic I mean the mechanic, not as in like you're dropping slurs and being a piece of shit. But as they're blocking the creatures and killing them, you're generating card advantage and card quality over time. This is a pretty cool part of that archetype, perhaps them handing us too many bars of the archetype to figure out. As in, like, we don't have to spend any energy to figure out. They're just like, here's 5 cards to build around that all work together. But a cool card nonetheless. And the art might be one of my favourites so far, with this ink out of the eye, the Phyrexian oil out of the eye. And the flavour text, drown so you may breathe again from Atraxa, is gas. And then we come to the white Dominus. This is, like, there's a Phyrexian torso at the top and a head, but there's also mouths, like multiple mouths. I am loving Elesh Norn's teeth motif. Everything is ivory and stone with red sinew, and there's just fucking teeth everywhere, and it is grim. A 4-mana 4/4 Phyrexian horror. It's legendary, so it can be in your command zone. If 1 or more tokens would be created under your control, twice that many tokens are created instead. That's right, you now have an anointed possession for the command zone. And then 1 mana and 2 Phyrexian whites, you can pay it with 2 life per pip. Sacrifice 2 other artifacts and or creatures, put an indestructible counter on Mondrak, Glory Dominus. So she can prevent herself from dying by making herself indestructible, by putting a counter on her by sacking 2 things. So that's a sacrifice outlet built into a self-protection ability, built into an anointed possession on a good rate 4-mana 4/4 body. This card is strong. I wonder if further down the line this might be the Elesh Norn of this set. And by that what I mean is people were saying Elesh Norn needed to be banned already because they're a bunch of fucking cowards. And I wonder if this card is one of those cards that's going to upset people too. Blade of Share Souls. Before I get to reading this, I just tell you I haven't read the second ability yet. It's a quick cost is 2. It's a 3-mana equipment artifact in blue, and it has Mirrodin. So the reason I picked it out is that when this equipment enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 red rebel creature token and then attach this to it. That is a direct parallel, a mirror version of Living Weapon from original New Phyrexia, where artifacts created germs to attach themselves to and grew into creatures. And so we have weapons that are being grabbed by the rebels coming to the cause. In this case, red rebels. Whenever Blade of Shared Souls becomes attached to a creature, for as long as Blade of Shared Souls remains attached to it, you may have that creature become a copy of another target creature you control. Excuse me? This is a clone effect on a blade? Oh, I'm not making this up, by the way. I thought I picked it out for the Mirrodin effect to tell you about, like, the mirror of Living Weapon, but the second bit is actually really cool. Like, I don't think it's super powerful as such. A lot of the powerful creatures in Modern Magic are legendary, so clones have got worse and worse over the years. But being able to, like, move around that cloneship to other creatures is a very powerful and unique effect we haven't seen before, especially on an equipment, and especially on equipment that brings a 2/2 body with it. So it is a 2/2 creature initially. It's a 2/2 creature that enters. Yes, it enters as a copy of things. So it's a 3-mana clone of something you control, then you can detach, keep a 2/2 body, and turn something else into a creature, a copy of a creature you control. This card is fucking wild, I love it. And now we're getting to some of the real juice here. Black Sun's Twilight is an X spell that gives a creature to -X/-X, where if X is 5 or more, return a target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. This card is going to be a powerhouse in Standard. I can see it now, and it's, well, alongside Shoulder and other ridiculous black cards, right? But it also seems like you could see some play in other formats too, because the upside is so huge. On the whole, it'll be like a cast for 1, 2, or 3 mana to kill things, but being able to modally bring back something later on is very powerful, especially that thing is shouldered, for example. But the card that I think of this cycle that will be played in older formats is Green Sun's Twilight. It's a green X spell. Reveal top X cards plus 1 of your library. Choose a creature card and or a land card from among them, and wow, so you get 2. This is even better than holy shit, this is better than I thought. Put those cards in your hand and the rest on your bottom of your library in a random order. If X is 5 or more, instead put the chosen card onto the battlefield or into your hand and the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. So essentially, you look X cards deep, but if it's cast for 1 singular green mana, you still look at 1 card. So for 1 green mana, you reveal top card of your library. If it's a land or a creature, and you can play a deck where the only non-land or non-creature spell in your deck is going to be Green Sun's Twilight itself. You hit one of those things and you put it in your hands. So at worst, at absolute worst in a pinch, it cantrips and digs you deeper into your deck. But beyond that, you start to pay it for X's 2 and X's 3. You look at multiple cards and take 2 cards at a time, a creature or a land from among them. But if X is 5 or more, so for 6 mana, you look 6 cards deep because it's 5 plus 1, and you put 1 land and 1 creature into play. This card is actually nuts. Now, of course, there's going to be situations where you whiff and don't hit anything. This isn't quite a natural order level of power. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to hype this up as the next broken thing, but it feels like it's going to be an absolute staple in some formats. Standard, easily. Beyond that, Pioneer and Modern, maybe. I could see perhaps the Amulet decks of Modern utilizing this, where X is 5 or 6 or 7 to find Titans and Elysian Dryads to activate the Valakut combo. Because you can also grab Valakut and a Dryad at the same time, which seems kind of nuts. This card is so unbelievably pushed. I can't believe it's and or a land, as opposed to just pick a land or a creature. It's both. That is wild to me. So far, this is my pick for most powerful card we've seen out of the set. The Eternal Wanderer is a 6 mana, 5 loyalty planeswalker. No more than 1 creature can attack the Eternal Wanderer each combat. It's got an uptick where you X up to 1 target artifact or creature, and return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of that player's end step, so you get to flicker something for 1 mana. It's for 0, creates a 2/2 white samurai creature token with double strike, and -4, each player chooses a creature that player controls. Each player sacrifices all creatures they control not chosen this way. So it's got like an Edict Wrath on the top end. It's a 6 mana flicker planeswalker, so that's always going to get me excited because it's one of my favourite things to do in Magic, and it does make bodies to protect itself, and it can only be attacked by 1 creature, so that body is always going to be able to protect that creature, or protect against that creature, unless that creature has evasion, unless it has trample or flying, for example. This seems pretty good. I've seen some people compare it to Elspeth's Sun's Champion. I just don't think it's anywhere near as good as that. Making 3 1/1s every turn that then synergizes with the ult just to murder people once you get there. This doesn't kill the opponent. Hell, if the opponent is not playing many creatures at all, the ultimate doesn't really do anything. I guess the point that's worth noting, though, is that the ultimate isn't an ultimate. It's not in the sense that you have to tick up towards it. The ultimate, the -4, can be used immediately upon casting. So at that point, you've got a 6 mana Wrath that also generates bodies and leaves a planeswalker behind. Okay. Now that I've realised that the ultimate doesn't kill her, it keeps her around, this seems very strong. Bloated Contaminator is a 3 mana 4/4 with trample, so it's got evasion. So it's an undercosted 4 power and 4 toughness for 3 mana with evasion. It also has Toxic, so once it's hit your opponent for 4, it also leaves a poison counter behind. And then whenever Bloated Contaminator deals combat damage to a player, you can proliferate, that word is hard to say when you're speaking fast. You can proliferate, so it always leaves behind 2 toxic counters actually, because it puts another one on there, because the damage is dealt, the token's there, the counter is there, and you can proliferate it. This card is pushed, but ironically, we live in a world where a 3 mana pushed 4/4 is just not that good anymore. Old Growth Troll is triple green pipped 4/4 with upside, right? And this is a 4/4 with upside, with evasion too. But this not being triple green, that used to be a downside, but the formats that want 3 mana 4/4s like Old Growth Troll are also the Nykthos formats, right? So not being able to get Nykthos pips off this makes it worse. However, if there's an Infect deck in Standard or Pioneer, I imagine this will be one of the beaters in it, because the evasion is so strong for getting those counters through and activating that proliferate. I'm going to end out the video now with the planeswalkers, the ones that everyone wants to talk about, the Phyrexianized ones. We have Nissa, Ascended Animist at 7 mana, but she comes in when you pay 7 mana as a 7 loyalty planeswalker. Of course, she has completed, so 2 of those pips are Phyrexian, you can pay 2 life for them, and for each 2 life you play, she comes into play with 2 less loyalty count. This is a thing that people are confusing, and I can see why. Whilst completed is written onto the card, Phyrexian mana does work in a very particular way previously, so to have it work differently on planeswalkers is strange. I wonder if one day we'll get Phyrexian mana on a planeswalker like 5 years from now that isn't part of the completed mechanic, and that'll be pretty confusing, but we're nowhere near that yet, so I can't really complain about that. Her +1 creates an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token where X is Nissa Ascended Animist's loyalty. These X's are static. It makes them recording her loyalty at the time. It's not star, it's XX. So it enters the battlefield with, in the case of when you first cast her, 8, or if you Phyrexianized her out or completed her out, it's going to be 5, ticking up to 6. So she ticks up to make a 6/6. Then she can tick down to try artifact or enchantment, a very versatile and very powerful effect that has been very strong on green planeswalkers in the past. And then a 7 mana thing is Until end of turn, creatures you control get Blanchwood armor and gain trample. Does Blanchwood armor normally give trample? I can't remember. Either way, it's going to murder people. Now, it does incentivize you to play forests, but that's not really much of a downside when you're playing a green planeswalker. And her being 7 mana to be able to activate the ultimate, because obviously if you complete her out for life, she doesn't have 7 loyalty, but you can always pop her out for 2 life less, tick her up and make a 6/6, and next turn try to Blanchwood armor, overrun people in the face. This is a Crater Hoof style, this is an End Raise Forerunner style finisher, essentially. It's a 7 mana, everyone at the table is probably dead in Commander. It's a very, very powerful mythic. People are talking about how it might be just a bit too good to just end the game there and then, but remember, you have to have creatures in play, the opponents have to not have blockers, you have to have enough forest to make it good. The evasion being strapped on does kind of mean that it's probably just going to kill people, but I think there's nothing wrong with that. A 7 mana green spell like a Planeswalker coming down should look to end games sometime. Maybe it's a bit too wombo combo for some people, I can see the complaint, but this card is very strong. Actually, the more I think about it, it is just wombo combo the card. On the upside, compared to End-Raise Forerunners or Crater Hoof, you can't Green Suns for this. Neither Zenith or Twilight, now that I've got to specify which one I'm referring to. Vraska Betrayal Sting is a 6 mana or 5 if you complete it. Planeswalker comes in with a 6 or 4 if you complete it, loyalty. You draw a card and lose 1 life and proliferate for 0, which is that's some good tech. Draw a card, lose a life, and then proliferate. So she actually goes up. It's technically an uptick because you can proliferate herself and other Planeswalkers, creatures, and poison, of course. -2 is target creature becomes a treasure. That's right, target creature becomes a treasure. A great bit of removal there that does ramp your opponent. Weirdly in black, it's kind of got a path to exile feel to it. The previous card that turned commanders into treasure, I think was in, what colour was that in? I knew it was green and white because I play it in Sithis and I love this card, Minimus Containment, but I couldn't for the life of me remember what it was called. Removing your opponent's stuff and then giving them mana is traditionally, or at least famously, in white's part of the colour pie with Path to Exile, and Minimus Containment continues on that route. To see the Gorgon turn people into treasures is very thematic in terms of what a Gorgon would do, especially if Phyrexia one went turns them into like a precious metal, but it does seem slightly outside of colour pie. I can't think, there might be other black versions of cards that give people treasures. The obvious one is Vraska Relic Seeker that kills a creature and steals one of the treasures, but this old Vraska gives you the treasure. It doesn't turn the opposing creature into a treasure. Of course you can turn your own creatures into treasure here, it's not all opponent stuff, but this just feels very Path to Exile territory to me. And -9, if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they get a number of poison counters equal to the difference. So basically, her -9 just takes them up to 9 poison, at which point you can proliferate them with herself or another Planeswalker or another spell or whatever. I say another Planeswalker. Is there another Planeswalker with proliferate on it? I don't know if there is. Either way, it's a powerful armament, but it doesn't kill them on the spot. It doesn't just give them 10 poison. Most Planeswalker emblems, if you have to tick up to them, have to kill people. This one, it kind of gets you there. I guess if you're ahead enough to ultimate a Planeswalker, it will get you there. Nahiri is 4 mana, one of which is a hybrid frictionized mana to cause a completion. I think this is messy, I don't like it. Comes in with 5, of course, comes in with 3 if completed. +1 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature attacks a player, each combat fable. Essentially a goad style effect. +1, discard a card, then draw a card, which is a rummaging effect. And then her 0 is the most interesting part. Exile target creature or equipment card with mana value less than Nahiri's loyalty from your graveyard, and create a token that's a copy of that token, and it gains haste, and exile at the end of next end step. So they've gone out their way to make sure this is not another Grease Fang situation where you just dump dumb shit in the graveyard and return it to play. You have to kind of like pump her up to really do obnoxious things with it, but upon ETB at 4 mana, she can still bring back a 4 power creature from the graveyard, or even a 5 mana, sorry not power, 5 mana value creature from the graveyard, and it doesn't cost you anything. She can do that every single turn. Bear in mind that the card itself does self-exile at the beginning of the next end step, although it doesn't exile itself when you sack it, so you can just have a sacrifice outlet, perhaps the new White Dominus, for example. I really like this pseudo ultimate, not quite ultimate reanimation thing she's got going on by making tokens of things out of the bin. Oh, I'm a dum-dum. The sack outlet thing's complete bollocks because you exile the original card to make the token copy, and it's a token copy. I'm thinking of sneak attack style effects, through the breach style effects, Goyo's Vengeance and stuff. That is not how this works. It's just a token that sacking it can get you some sacking value, but it's not going to allow you to do it again. I really like the space. The other 2 abilities kind of kind of suck. The goading something doesn't really excite me in the slightest. So yeah, she's a mixed bag, but she's infinitely better than the shit cough in this set. And then we have, to round it all out, Jace, the perfected mind. If you didn't know, if you didn't watch my video from yesterday, Jace got stabbed by Phyrexia and he turned to the Phyrexian side. He is Phyrexianized now. Now bear in mind, let's do a little bit of story deep dive here. Look at him. He has a robot arm and he has tentacles similar to what we see coming out of Venser's body, but they're smaller and less obtuse. Either way, his augmentation, his Phyrexianized completion is so uninvasive that it almost guarantees the fact that he's going to get unphyrexianized further down the line and still be a pretty boy in a hood. Everyone else got like protruding bones and blades for arms and like metallic shell armor coming out of their body. And Jace is just like, I got a cool robot arm out of it. I'm almost convinced that Jace will be the one, if any of them get saved, that will be saved. Now, let's talk about that for a second. I really want completion to matter. I don't want it just to disappear immediately from the story and them all to get undone and everything to be better. I think that would fucking suck. But one of them coming back would be okay. If anything, they can be racked with survivor guilt, which I think is an interesting storyline to explore. I think exploring stories like that is good. Someone on Twitter suggested that now he comes back if he is the one that is saved, and then he's racked with guilt, not only from being the one survivor, but Vraska is dead, his love as well. And that means he might just retire from public space. He might be a character that was rarely seen and might be very, very angry. Do we see him come back as a red-blue Jace? Or do we come back with my other theory? That he comes back and his spark is removed and he's now just a powerful wizard, but he's not a planeswalker. And then we only see him from time to time on Ravnica or wherever the planeswalker is taken to. Either way, he's a 4 mana, 5 loyalty creature. His pose, I say creature, planeswalker. His pose and his mana cost evoke the Mind Sculptor. And bear in mind, he's actually writing words in the air this time that can be said on YouTube. I am joking, this is just Phyrexian for the word cunt. He's completed, so if he's completed, he enters with 3 loyalty. His +1 is until your next turn up to 1 target creature, it's -3, -0. His -2 is target player mills 3 cards. Then this is quite good. If a graveyard has 20 or more cards in it, you may draw 3 cards, otherwise you draw a card. This is literally a combination of the mill 3, like, what mills 3? There's got to be a spell that just mills 3, it'll be terrible. But it also combines with Visions from Beyond, the 1 blue mana spell that is an ancestral recall if your opponent's graveyard is full. This is the best part of him. His uptick is meh, his downtick is strong, and then, well, when the graveyard's full, late game. But his -X, where target player mills 3 times X, is pretty shit. I guess he can be a 4 mana mill 15, but that's kind of shocking. So his ultimate is bad, his draw 3 cards might be strong. His uptick, it is parallel to Architect of Thought, but Architect of Thought could do it to 2 creatures if I remember correctly. I'm typing it in now, or was it the whole board? I'm still typing in. Architect of Thought I played a load during Standard and a little bit in Modern. I remember buying the Vraska versus Jace dual deck to get multiple copies of it. And so your next turn, whenever a creature an opponent controls attack, it gets -1, -0 into end of turn. It like debuffs the whole team. So I guess this is better into a smaller board space, but worse against a wider board space. I guess in many ways, original Architect of Thought was quite good against Elspeth's Sun's Champion, where Perfected Mind might be good against the creatures making single bodies, that being the Wanderer and Nissa. Ultimately, I think this is a whiff. I don't think it's very strong. But if you can consistently draw 3 cards off this bad boy, it's going to be insane. Like -2, draw 3 cards, and then protected to draw 3 more cards at 4 mana. Woof, that's hot. But I just doubt it. And that's my picks for the previews today. I might do another preview run up later in the week or early next week as more things get revealed, if new exciting stuff does. This set does look pretty baller, if I'm honest. I'm kind of enjoying it. I say kind of, I'm very much enjoying it, but I love the Phyrexians, and I love seeing some of the Gatewatch get fucking ruined as well. Although Elspeth getting ruined is not okay. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. How was I wrong about anything? Do you think some of these cards are way more powerful than I'm giving credit for? Let me know, and I'll see you all soon. Ta-ta.